Excuse me, Mr. Gio.
Yeah, what's up?
What does it take to become a champion?
You gotta dream, you gotta think, you gotta act, you gotta ball, you gotta bleed, and most important, you gotta believe.
You gotta dream
like a champion, think like a champion, act like a champion, say I'm a champion. Like a champion, bleed like a champion,
look in the mirror and believe.
You're a champion,
You gotta dream
like a champion,
think
like a champion. You're tuned in to IChampionHealth Chats, the podcast for amplifying community voices and advancing health for all in Lexington, Kentucky. Each episode connects you with local champions who bring powerful stories, useful tools, and fresh ways we can show up for ourselves and others. Let's lock in and learn how we can champion health together. All right, good afternoon to all of our listeners and viewers, and welcome to another episode of IChampionHealth Chats. I am your host, Gerald Gio Gibson. I am a community program coordinator. We are focused on violence prevention and intervention, and the organization that I currently oversee is Operation Making a Change right here in Fayette County. But joining me today is my co-host, Mr. Jacob Hester.
Yeah, I'm Jacob Hester. I'm program coordinator for iChampionHealth here in the UK College of Education, and we are dedicated to health for all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest today. When I say we have a special guest, this man is always on the move. He's moving the needle. Not only was he the youngest councilman to be elected, but he's doing amazing work in the community. So let's give a round of applause for Mr. Councilman Tyler Morton. How you doing today, brother?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. It's
All
a
right.
great day. It's a great day. It's a pleasure to be here at the iChampionHealth Chat Podcast. It's an honor.
Man, we appreciate you stopping by. Can you tell the listener viewers a little bit about yourself? You know, what you're doing? How did you get into the work you're doing?
Of course. I'll start all the way to the young age. So actually, I was born and raised here in Lexington, Kentucky in the Green Acres area off of Russell Cave Road. And I was born into a family of leaders. It's ironic that we're sitting in the building of the College of Education because my grandmother was actually the first African-American to graduate from the University of Kentucky. And she graduated to be a teacher, and she graduated right out of this College of Education. So it's just, it actually makes the hairs lift on my skin to even be sitting here
I think I am
and
too.
to talk about that, right? But she was really my superhero, and she kind of honestly led the direction of my life. So, I was born to a family of leaders, like I just said. She was the first African-American graduate from UK. My aunt was the first African-American graduate from Transylvania. My grandfather was the affirmative action officer at LFUCG in the city government. So, and they instilled many values in me, whether it be, humility, whether it be hardworking and just loving the neighbors and, supporting everyone. So that led me to always want to help others and kind of get into that drive. So when I was in high school, I did fire science training, wanted to be a firefighter, and had that hands-on vocational training. Was too young, was 18. I had to be 19 to get on, so I ended up coming to UK, following in my grandmother's footsteps. And I wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted some money, prestige, thought it was a good job, and I was already in that medical field. Ended up getting a job at the UK hospital, patient transporter, entry-level job. Had a good work ethic, was a hard worker, so they said, we want to see you at a higher level. They ended up pushing me up, and I ended up getting a job as an anesthesia technician, which is just short for anesthesiologist assistant. So we're working in the OR, and I still hold that job to today. I hold that job part-time. So pretty much UK is the only level 1 trauma center, so we get all the gunshot wounds, all the wrecks, any major emergency or trauma within the surrounding counties. It comes to UK, it has to. So I started seeing folks come into the OR, and like I said, I work with anesthesiologists with many different surgeries, whether it be traumas, whether it be brain surgeries, whether it be heart surgeries, any type of surgery you could think of, I was assisting. I pretty much say that we're the hands, they're the brains, and we work together to get the job done. But what really started hit at home was I started having folks come in as gunshot wounds, folks that I knew from my community. Mm-hmm. My brother ended up passing away due to gun violence, and I started, in my head, there's one patient on this bed, but there's a mass community struggling with challenges, and I'm thinking, how do we start addressing those challenges? So I changed my major from neuroscience pre-med to major in philosophy to major in sociology with a minor in philosophy, to study the community, study how we can start addressing those challenges, and I actually had a focus in medical sociology. So this podcast is. It all hit home when I was thinking about it. But either way, so I started studying that community, started figuring out different ways we could start addressing it. Still worked at the hospital, so still was getting that that direct experience, still seeing it Graduated from UK, got my master's in public administration, where I interned with Councilman James Brown at city government, the District 1, the former District 1 council member, and he pretty much taught me how to put theory into practice, so how to get the job done on the ground. So that led me really to being here. I ended up graduating with my master's and worked in the job full time for a little bit, stepped away, came back. The community came to me and said, we want to see you in this position. We think that you would do a good job. So I took the call, and ran with it. But it all started, at a young age of wanting to help others, I would say.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing when I tell you. This brother has an amazing story.
Yeah, I'm curious. Kind of sitting in this space, like it's sort of maybe a little bit of a surreal experience, right? Like your grandmother coming through here as the first African American woman to graduate from the university, from this college, is really that's amazing. I actually didn't know that. When you were saying got chills, like I literally got chills as well. So I'm curious, what's kind of a lesson that she taught you that you're still using to this day in all the different roles that you fill?
Indeed, I think it's humility. She always. Well, I'll go back to a little story. So when she told me, we was like, I have a twin sister and her name's Taylor, and we were probably in like the 4th or 5th grade, and she never talked about it. When she told us, we were like, yeah, right. And at that time, technologies has evolved, so you can easily look up right now at all these different things. But in that age, we were still on those box screens, so even when you try to look her up, you really couldn't find much. But they UK ended up started reaching out, and they started doing oral history interviews and all these different things. And there's actually one online right now where she actually mentions me and my twin in the basement and talks about us. But the point was humility. She never wanted attention. She never really cared about that piece of history. It was all about just serving and helping others. And she put that within me. She instilled that into me. And I think as a leader, we should have humility. It's not about, let's put it like this. I have a motto out of my office and my staff. They hear it all the time. It's not about ego. It's not about power. It's not about perception. It's about serving and doing the right thing. And that's what I lead by. So,
Say it again.
Yeah. So council, what is the role of council? And how does that involve the community? Can you talk about what does council do? It helps.
Yeah. So, in the charter, council is defined to do two things: pass a budget each year, and then levy taxes, but then also every 5 years do comp plans. But it's so much more bigger than that. I see council as, we have the branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. The council is that legislative branch. So they're the balance of power to the executive branch. So I would say, we have the mayor, and she's the executive branch, so she oversees government, she oversees staff. Well, the council is that balance to the executive branch. So we pretty much oversee the budget, we create policies, and then we also have oversight over all, pretty much all departments of government. But that is just that one piece of the internal piece. Council is community engagement. I would say it's policy making, it's budget oversight, it's development and land use, pretty much decision making, and it's constituency representation. We all in Lexington, there's 12 districts, and then there's 3 at larges, but each of those 12 districts represents a specific population, a specific part of Lexington, and we're tasked with representing that district, I would say.
Yeah.
So a little bit of all those.
So what do you think the community should know more of when it comes to council? Because a lot of people aren't really educated or familiar with. What do you think people should know more of about council?
Yeah. Well, I think I'll start. Well, council is a part-time job, so each council members are part-time, but it definitely takes full-time work. So in my case, I serve the first district. It's one of the most unique districts in Lexington. It represents pretty much some of our historic African-American neighborhoods, some of our historic undervalued, underserved neighborhoods, all the way down into the downtown area to some of our bustling downtown neighborhoods. So to that point, I think that when in my area, if you served a part-time, there's no way you would meet the need. There's no way you meet the challenge. But in the case of the council back in the day, it was they always say there's 2 R's. It's either you was rich, 3 R's. You was rich, you were retired, or you're a realtor. And we know that working people could not be in those positions because they had to bring home. They had to go get a job. They had to bring money home. So it was tasked with certain leaders only could be in those positions. Well, now it's different. So you have folks that are using it as a full-time job. I mean, it's part-time pay, but they're just that's the dollars that they're getting.
Yeah.
You have folks that are doing 2 jobs. So like me, I worked that full-time, so I put full-time attention there, about 60 hours probably a week. But then also I work at the hospital part-time. So it just depends. And then you still have some folks that are real estate retired, but it's a more diverse unit. But in certain cases, when it comes to the public of them not knowing, I think we have to understand that government is a slow turning wheel. And unfortunately, we can try to speed it up a little bit, but it's not going to go much faster. So there's different processes and procedures that have to be followed. And some communities members think that, well, since we called and it wasn't done the next day, that they dropped the ball. But in reality, sometimes it just takes some time, I would say.
Right.
So
It's a
the kind of
process.
process, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you and some of your fellow council members out at a lot. I mean, because OMAC's out a lot, IChampionHealth's out at a lot of events, and just that sort of outreach and being with the people. So I've always really appreciated the council members that I see out there on a regular basis, knowing again it's kind of realistically it's supposed to be kind of like a part-time gig, right? But spending that time and giving up your weekends to be out among the people and things like that too. So I know you kind of got a really good pulse on things like health and healing in the community. So what are some things that you notice that sort of make the community feel stronger or healthier or sort of more connected? Kind of what's working?
Yeah. I think the key thing that we're starting to do more that's working, that we see is working, is having the community having access to information, but then also access to resources that they're in need of, and not just access, but having those resources at their footsteps. So we're seeing a lot more community fairs, like health fairs. We're seeing a lot more community job fairs, a lot more activities that are taking place and programs that are taking place in our community where the folks don't have to go and find the resources. They're right there available for them. And I always say access to information is key. If you don't know where to get resources, if you don't know what your next go-to is, then you're limited. But then also having that, after you have that information, it should be, where are those resources? Do you have the access to those resources? So I think with the access to information, access to resources, folks are beginning to get that feel that, we're kind of getting out of this place of, I would say, just not an uncomfortable place, I would say. Yeah.
What is your hope for the community? Let's look at maybe 3 to 5 years. Like what do you hope for our community and the people that play a role with you? What does that look like?
Indeed. My hope is that we are creating safer and healthier communities.
Okay.
I think that is the ultimate goal. I think, just going back to that sociology field, I think about it in the social determinants of health, economic stability, community and built environment, neighborhood and built neighborhood environment. We have healthcare, access to healthcare and good quality healthcare, but then also access to quality education. Looking at those 5 fields, how are we making sure that our undervalued communities, our underserved communities are, getting great resources and better of those in those 5 categories, I would say.
Okay.
And I think, every community in Lexington deserves to have a safe and healthy and thriving community. And that's how do we work towards building that and creating that. And I think those social determinants of health are lead drivers towards that.
So what opportunities are you seeing? What sort of needs or opportunities are out there right now?
Indeed. I think it goes back to that, the resources, access to the resources and information. While I said that I think that's a good first step, that they're getting access, that they're seeing more of that, I think that we can always provide more. And when we start providing more information tied to those 5 social determinants of health, or more resources tied to those 5 social determinants of health, we can start really moving the needle of folks that are just, that have been underserved and undervalued. And we know that pretty much in some of our lower socioeconomic status neighborhoods, the statistics in fact show that, their life expectancy is much lower, that their economic stability compared to some other parts of town, whether it be green line, red line compared to green line, is just, it's no comparison, all the different things. So how do we move that gap and just make it decrease that gap, I would say. Yeah.
So what, every time I run into you, you're always in the community. You always seem to have a positive attitude. Like, what are you so grateful for? Like, where does that come from?
Indeed, I think I wake up every morning with a breath, and I think that's the main thing I'm grateful for. That I get to do this job, that I get to be the voice for the voiceless, that I get to be, represent a community that has been, like I said, undervalued, underserved, and left behind in so many different cases. And I think that the community enjoys that. So I think, just over this past year, just building that connection with the community, building that relationship with the community, and understand that we have a big elephant, and I call that, it's a big elephant of a challenge that we're working on, but we're taking one bite of the elephant a day, and I'm just hoping that elephant is just getting smaller each day. So that's what waking up just to take a bite out of the elephant.
Yeah. Well, definitely admire your drive, man. I mean, working for a hospital for long periods of hours and then taking on this role in the community as one of the youngest councilmen ever to be elected, correct? Here in Lexington,
Yes, sir.
Kentucky. So how does Tyler Morton pause all of that and take care of Tyler Morton? How do you do that? Like, what do you do for that?
Yeah, self-care is real. I believe in self-care, and I always advocate for it. I just take my hobbies are just my self-care is a little minimal, whether it be taking a walk, maybe listening to some music, just taking some me time, putting the phone down a little bit. But my self-care, I haven't really dived into this big, huge self-care plan because I'm really trying to take care of the community. But I do take a break sometimes, and that while it's a limited break, it's a small break. I take a break for self-care.
It's not easy to unplug, especially when you're so invested in the community and you care that much. So I definitely can relate with that.
Yeah,
It's hard to
I
unplug.
can certainly speak to that on Gio's behalf too. I mean, we've had this conversation quite a few times about like kind of being able to take that breath so that you can. It's that old like the example they give you on an airplane, right? Like you got to be able to put your own oxygen mask on first so that you can take care of others.
Right.
And sort of the importance of that. So it's really interesting to kind of hear because a lot of our guests, right, are folks who are in the community doing this type of work, and just every time we kind of ask that question, sometimes you get like a pause, like, what do I do sometimes? Because a lot of it is pouring back into the people and the loved ones and your neighbors and the folks you work with and all that type of stuff. So we like to stress it quite a bit, being able to remember yourself too and all of that process. But Gio and I, we bond over music. That's one of the things that I know for us is kind of a self-care thing. And you mentioned music. So we've been working on some curated playlists. So we've been now starting to ask our guests, what's a song or an artist that you turn on when you need either like a pick-me-up or a calm down or some sort of reset? What's your go-to for you?
I don't even have favorites. I'm one of those weirdos. I don't have no favorite sports. I don't have no favorite sports team or favorite artist or genre. But I always wake up the morning with like some type of gospel, and then I'm like a big R&B and old school guy. So like throughout the day, I wake up with gospel, then just R&B and old school throughout the day, and it just gives me those vibes, I would say. And obviously, I come in a generation that listens to rap music and all those different things, and I indulge, but I strongly try to lean on more so the R&B because we're in a time and age that some of the rap music just I call it out of touch with reality. Is what I call it. So
Yeah. But hey, you have a voice. I mean, you're using your voice, and there are going to be people listening to this. What advice or what do you want to leave our listeners and viewers, especially our young champions, our future champions, our future leaders, our youth, that you're very invested in? What positive message can you leave them right now?
100%. The youth, are my number one priority because they're not just the present, but they are the future. And I think that is the statement. You are the present, but not only are you the present, you're the future. And we have, as leaders, we have to invest in you. We have to make sure that you have that platform to put your ladder on so that you can climb those rungs and make it to the top. And I always say, as a leader, that's my main goal, is how are we building this platform for our youth, for our next generation to have a ladder of success and so they can climb it and make it up top. So dream big and reach your dreams, as I say.
All right. Y'all heard it. Dream big. Hey, you got to put in the work. So again, we want to thank you, Councilman Tyler Morton, for coming by and blessing this podcast, IChampionHealth, with your presence. We wish you well on your journey. You're doing a great job, man, and just keep up the great work. Again, we thank all you listeners and viewers for tuning in to another episode of IChampionHealth Chats. Again, I'm your host, Gerald Gio Gibson. My co-host, Jacob Hester, is in the building, and we just want to thank you and God bless. And tune in to us on all platforms. Thanks for tuning in to IChampionHealth Chats. If something you heard in this episode spoke to you, don't forget to follow us and share it with your community. You can find us on social media at IChampionHealth or email us at iChampionHealth@uky.edu. This season was paid for with funds from the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission by and through the Office of the Attorney General. The opinions and recommendations expressed in this podcast are those of IChampionHealth and the guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views of the Kentucky Opioid Abatement Advisory Commission or the Office of the Attorney General.